Radio, aka Tampa Bay Tammy. Every week I do the best I can to tout and lift up and praise the work that they do now, present day, that they've done for decades in this community to bring news, entertainment, education, and just good times to our community. First of all, through the In Touch News magazine, and now through the In Touch News radio broadcast. Of course, you can listen to us on In Touch News, www.intouchnews.com, and you can tune in on the YouTube channel, the In Touch News YouTube channel, and you can tune in on the YouTube, not YouTube, what is it? The Facebook page, the In Touch News Facebook page. So you can check us out. I think one advantage to tuning in via YouTube or Facebook is that you can, interact, leave comments and stuff like that. But if you're listening to us right now live on whatever you're listening, you can call in. And the call in number is 813-444-9588. You can call up and we can talk. Last week, we had what I thought was a pretty good show. I really enjoyed it. It's actually one of my favorites because it just had an opportunity to share some stuff that I began doing with my family, with you all. I'm real big into Proverbs, African Proverbs, not the Book of Proverbs in the King James version, or you got a whole lot of versions. The other day I was reading something. They got the EST version, and they got the NLT version. They got a whole lot of versions. But I grew up with the KJV version, and I guess the V stands for version. So KJ version, the King James version. Grew up with that, and so I'm not talking about that book. I'm talking about African Proverbs. And I'm not, listen, my favorite book in the King James version of the Bible is Proverbs. So I don't have nothing against Proverbs, but it's not talking about that. I'm talking about African Proverbs, Proverbs that we wrote, that from our experiences and the our desire to create life and recreate life for ourselves. Those words that were germinated from that desire to produce life for ourselves and reproduce life for ourselves, not for the colonizer. And so those pure words are still teaching tools worth using today, in my view. And so I started I put a TV in a hallway, and it serves as a message board. And each morning, I put a proverb on the message board so family members, household members, can review in the morning, review the message board, and hopefully walk inspired by that message throughout the day, and of course, days to come. This morning's proverb was. A hot-tempered man can destroy in a minute all that his 20 years has achieved. And so I thought that was important to share with the family because got teenagers who when you young, some of us even as adults, still hot-tempered and mess around and destroy in 1 minute all that you've achieved in 20 years. But certainly, teenagers who have not yet learned temperament and how to, even that they can control their emotions, might get a little, allow people to get under their skin, get a little hot-tempered, and mess themselves up. As a matter of fact, I was in court today, and saw a juvenile trial, where there were 3 young boys, looked like middle school age, who were on trial for DV battery, domestic violence battery. and misdemeanor charge in juvenile court. So no real threat of going to prison or anything like that for them. Nonetheless, it could have, if the case had not been dismissed, if the judge had not dismissed the case, it would have been it, well, it could have been a permanent stain on their record. I said could have been because, of course, there's the possibility of expungement and sealing those charges. That's a available option. But still, there are some instances where employers, prospective employers, or even institutions which individuals want to become members, in which people want to participate, have ask questions like, have you ever been arrested, regardless of whether whether you were adjudicated guilty or adjudication was withheld, whether it's the charge has been expunged or the case has been expunged or sealed. They ask that question and expect you to answer candidly, full disclosure. So, and they ask the question because it matters to them, and you have to answer honestly or reap the repercussions for that. Mm-hmm. And for example, if you want to be a lawyer, the Florida bar gonna ask all those questions, and if you are not truthful, and if you are, if you don't give full disclosure, if you try to hide a little bit, like tell a little bit of the truth, they're gonna run you through the ringer. I know people right now who who can't get a bar card, pass the bar exam, but can't pass what's called the character and fitness, because I shouldn't say they can't pass it, but did not pass the character and fitness because they weren't candid and they did not fully disclose the things about their past, because it was expunged, sealed, adjudication withheld, what have you. But them people got ways of finding out. When they ask the questions, most likely they set up to know the answer. But the point I'm making is these young boys could have just thrown themselves into a mess for the rest of their lives behind a hot-tempered moment. So I thought it a very good and appropriate proverb to share this morning, and I'm sharing it with you now. Hopefully it helps you. But last week I just shared, like, I don't know, probably a dozen proverbs. So you should go back if you're into proverbs. There is an African proverb that says, a wise man who knows proverbs can reconcile differences. And so it's good just to have these words of wisdom on your mind. You can, like people do Bible verses. You can kind of run to them for instruction and even some meditation, if you will, some kind of guidance. And so it's good to know proverbs. And so this week, as you can tell, I am not alone. I have a guest in the studio with me today, and I am so elated and excited to have this very special guest in the studio today. This lovely, I won't say young lady, because this lovely old lady sitting next to me is my favorite aunt. Yes. Several people know her as Elizabeth Austin, Miss Elizabeth, Miss Austin, but our family calls her sister. So this is my aunt's sister. And when I was young, I used to call her auntie sister. But you get older and you drop off the auntie part and just aunt. This is my aunt sister. And my mother's sister, my mother's oldest sister, and she's here in Tampa. She's born and raised in Tampa. No, that's not true. No, that's not true. uh, not born in Tampa, but raised in Tampa. Correct? You were born in what? Kissimmee? Winter Haven. All right. Somewhere up in there. All right. So, because I believe my mother was the first of y'all born in Tampa. Right. So, born in Winter Haven, raised in Tampa. Go on, come on, a little closer. There you go. There you go. You know they can see you.
Yeah.
They can see you doing that. No live protesting. Protest during the break. All right. So, right here, born in Winter Haven, raised in Tampa, moved away to Detroit, but comes back to Tampa quite frequently and is in Tampa with us today. Having been here for almost 2 weeks now, right? Almost 2 weeks. And we don't have to talk about what brought you here, but we can talk about what you've been doing since you've been here. And I want to do that. Gotta check it's almost time for a break. So listen, what we're gonna do is go to break, and when we come back, we're just gonna just talk shop. We're gonna talk a little bit about Martin Luther King Jr. because they had the whole holiday thing happening and stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about Tampa and just talk shop. Just have a good time like we always do whenever we get together. So listen, you can call in and talk to Auntie's sister. It's 813-444-9588. Living, walking, breathing Proverbs right here. So hey, we'll be right back on the Life Malcolm Show after this.
You're not showing me on no TV. You don't me on no TV.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was on radio where you can't see nobody.
No.
That's not fair.
Well, you gotta put on a suit.
I think he was on the radio.
Okay, so
Huh?
the mice is live.
Okay.
You good? You just lean when you're ready to speak. Just lean into the mic. Okay. You look good. I know you got a lot of work to do.
St. Petersburg, Tampa, Clearwater, no surrounding area. Come on, Amy, so she gonna leave all grown folks now.
Take that
Saturday, she works 28 inside the National Guard Armory. Straight in front of the crowd, put on your best, stretch to impress. What's performing live? Yeah, it's surface live and it's concert.
And I just gonna see like,
Oh no. You got too much wisdom to show. Even if you just allow your
St.
child.
Petersburg, Saturday,
Whatever
January
it is.
28th, inside the National Guard Armory, 3601, 38th Avenue South, along with surface. Get your tickets now, tickets $15 in advance. For more info, call 786-486-4366 or 727-768-4543. Look on GrownFolksMiami.com, and I'll see you there.
Hey, this is Age Right, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers on the grill. Located at 420 Green, Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The rib man, mama, the rib man.
Yo. Welcome back, world, to the Life Malcolm Show. I'm your host, Life Malcolm. We right here on In Touch News Radio, where everybody is a star, and the biggest star is you. And if you are just joining us, right to my right, I have my favorite aunt sister. Not to be confused with my aunt's sister. And she's not my aunt and my sister. She is the first girl of my maternal grandmother's offspring. And so there was my uncle, we call him my Uncle Junior, Uncle Junior boy. We call him Junior because he was a junior. And then there was my now favorite uncle and only living uncle from that clan, Ernest, Uncle Ernest, and he's out in Colorado. Y'all might have heard me talk about my Colorado trips before, so go out there to hang out with Uncle Ernest. And then, so we had 2 boys, and then Grandma had a girl, the sister, and so they call her sister. And growing up, we knew Auntie. I didn't even know her first name. Only name I knew was Sister, Auntie's sister. That was it. And I guess by the time I got to be a teenager, so I learned she had a name, like everybody else. And but Auntie's sister, all down through the years, has been a source of extreme joy and laughs and encouragement. I mean, really, really, really my favorite aunt, and always, sending birthday cards and Christmas cards, and letting me know way from chilly Detroit that she's thinking about me down here in Tampa. And call and check in on her. Try to call at least once a month. Sometimes we talk a little more often than that. Sometimes I don't do so well with calling, but every time I call, she answers the phone. I mean, you could see it on her face. I mean, nothing but smiles and laughter, and it's just a really, really good time. But the cool thing is, Auntie's sister is 84 years old. I'm 48. Auntie's sister's 84. And I mean, it's hard to keep up with her. Auntie's sister will bowl. Auntie's sister will go walking with me. We went walking. I mean, and she walked out walking me, and go camping. I won't go camping. Auntie's sister all over the country camping. And yesterday, she was at the parade. How was that, Auntie? How was the parade?
The parade was awesome. We had a wonderful time. And it was a first-time experience for me in such many years. When Martin Luther King was in Detroit, we all marched in the parade. That's how many years ago?
When he was actually there?
In Detroit.
Okay.
We marched down Woodward Avenue, our main street. And to be invited to be in the parade yesterday, it was awesome. And it was so much fun. And with New Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church.
Pastor Roundtree, Larry Roundtree.
Pastor Roundtree. Yep. And I had the courage to sit on the back and ride on the float and throw out beads. It was awesome. In commemoration of Dr. King, I enjoyed it.
You were throwing the beads?
Oh, yes.
You got a good
fun.
arm?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Did you hit anybody?
Some of them didn't reach that point.
Yeah, I thought you might have saw some children misbehaving. Hey, wow. So because when you lived in Tampa, there was no such thing as a Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Right.
Right. So certainly no parade.
Mm-mm.
This your first time being in a Martin Luther King Jr. parade in Tampa?
In Tampa, yes.
I mean, even attending one?
Attending one.
Wow.
That was an experience, yes.
A lot of people.
Lots of people.
A lot of people.
Lots of people. I think someone said it was more than they usually have. This
Really?
first time had lots of people.
A lot of police?
Oh, yes, of course.
I figured that part.
Well, they have to direct the traffic.
Is that what they do?
That's what
This sounds like a euphemism. Traffic. We think probably a N-word. They had to direct the traffic. But yeah, so this is the first year I did not go to the parade since the parade's come around and I was old enough to attend by myself. It's the first time when I did not live in Tampa, of course I didn't, come home to attend the parade, but this is the first time I did not attend the parade while in Tampa since I was a very young person. Yeah, but I just starting to realize that I've done a lot of stuff so much that I just don't want to do it anymore. Yes, and being out walking with all those people. Like last year, my daughter and I, my youngest, Jaye, and we walked the entire length of the parade because the parade starts right down the street from my mother's house.
Yes.
So we walked from my house to the end of the parade, back up to my mother's, and then back down to our house. So like, we
Lots of
walked the
walking.
entire length of the parade, and that was cool. But this year, I just decided to stay home and get some stuff done. And but had I known you were going, you didn't tell me. You kept that a secret. Had I known you were going, I might have got out there and try to catch some beads. It's also the first year I let one of my children go without parental supervision. It was hard. Oh, it was tough. You know, she said I had to call every hour on the hour to let me know she was safe, and gave her some rules. You know, some how to stay safe in the streets rules. You know, while she's out there, and so I was happy to know that she made it home safely. It was, you know, what a relief. Because in this day and age, with so many people acting wild and reckless, you know, a trip away from the house can end up a funeral. Hell, at the house, you know, people come kill your children. So yeah, it was just really. It was just the day. That yesterday was the day of firsts for me. You know, stayed home. Children, you know, child gone on her own, and then my aunties out there hanging out at the parade. So, what else have you done since you've been here?
Mr. Frederick Hearns.
Fred Hearn.
Yes, took Ernestine and I on a tour of West Tampa area where we grew up, and we were simply amazed. I was amazed at all the changes that have been made since we were growing up over there.
What are some of the biggest changes?
I told them at last they were tearing down our union projects where we grew up at. Each year I came, I would take the children and say, look where I grew up. And this time, everything is just torn down and building up, and so many new projects going on. It was really, I was so excited. Interesting to see all the new growth that's going on in Tampa. Yeah. You wouldn't even recognize it from the days I come.
Right. So, Fred Hearns, for people who don't know, is our cousin.
Yes.
And also, he's the guy who led the Black History bus tours in Tampa, the Tampa Bay area. I think he did something in St. Petersburg too, but certainly in Tampa he ran those Black History bus tours. And now he's head of like a Black History commission or something like that. And they do something at the museum, right?
Yes,
was it the
yes.
Tampa? I can't remember the name of the museum right now, but he brings people to town to celebrate Black history, and I think this during Black History Month. I know last year he brought Ben Crump as a keynote speaker, Attorney Ben Crump, and it was just a really good social event. A lot of people came out, so that just so people know who Fred Hearns is. So did he give you like a tour, like a Black History tour, like this? Because he'll do that. He'll say, these brick right here in the street. This black man bought them in a wagon, and so did he?
He did.
So like a tour like that.
Yes, he took me and your mom on a tour of the whole area and downtown and the Garrison. He was just giving us a history lesson.
Right.
It was really interesting. I enjoyed it.
I saw a picture of you all at the Perry Harvey Park.
Oh yes, that was exciting.
Did y'all walk around, or did y'all just take a picture of the statue?
We took mostly we took a picture, but he was explaining the history of the park.
Okay.
Because that's how I remembered the name from years ago, but I really didn't know too much about him.
Okay.
So he was just explaining and everything, and he gave us a really good tour.
Did he talk about the skate bowl? How they had the skate bowl there, and the white people didn't want to give up the skate bowl.
Well,
and they had it went all the way up to Washington D.C.
before they changed it.
Yeah, because so what happened? You remember the rebellions in 1966 when the police killed Martin Chambers? Shot him in the back, and they tore down Central Avenue. And so, if I recall the facts correctly, I think it was Nick Nuccio was the mayor at the time, and he offered some folk, some of the merchants on Central Avenue, the opportunity to rebuild the stores and marketplaces they had, the establishments they had, or they could take some money and then they'd like build a park over there or something like that. And so and I heard this a long time ago, but the people took the money and we got this park, and so now there's this park there, right, that was that's located in the place that used to be the bustling and burgeoning Central Avenue for black people.
Yes.
Movie theaters, clubs. But you remember Central Avenue?
I remember Central Avenue.
You know,
Not too much detail. It's been
right.
too many years ago. But I do remember it.
Yeah, but that was the spot, and so take that away. Now you have this park.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a skate bowl, like where people can skateboard. It was like a big bowl, just white people would come over there and like skate in the late '90s, early 2000s, and they just like taken over the skate park.
Okay.
And they, when children of Central Avenue started conversations about creating a Perry Harvey Park in that spot, the white people who had been there skating for years contested the idea, saying that now the park had historical value to them. And they ran it all the way up to Washington, D.C., and somehow, I forget what rule of law allowed the children of Central Park to prevail, but they did prevail, came to some kind of agreement, and so now the white people got a little skate situation not too far from where that Perry Harvey Park sits now. But yeah, it was. I was just wondering if he told you about the battle, because it was a battle. It wasn't just we want to build a park for Perry Harvey. Fred and others had to really battle for that. Fred was really instrumental in getting your alma mater, Middleton High School, restoring that to a high school from middle school.
Yes, he explained that too.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I think his name is on the cafeteria or the gymnasium.
I think it's at a pavilion or something.
His name is on. His name's on the building. It's either like the cafeteria or the gym. So I think maybe it's probably the cafeteria or something. Anyway, I hear the music signaling that we have to take a break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about Martin Luther King Jr. a little bit, and I think we might have a call-in guest as well. And so yeah, we'll be back on the just a few ticks right here on the Life Malcolm Show.
Favorite old school. Today's R&B. With a smooth touch of jazz. You're listening to In Touch Radio.
Hey, this is Tampa Bay Tammy. Don't forget to pick up your copy of In Touch News.
Right.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call Herman White at 961-6661. That's 961-6661.
Tell a friend to listen in. It's In Touch Radio, reality radio. Tell a friend to listen in. It's In Touch Radio, reality radio.
Yo. Welcome back to the Life Malcolm Show. I'm your host, Life Malcolm, and sitting in with me today is my favorite auntie sister. Now, so I said we're going to talk a little bit about Martin Luther King Jr. You said that, so when you were in the parade, you remember what year that was when Martin Luther King Jr. came to Detroit?
In the early 60s.
Early 60s?
Yes,
did you see him?
Yes, we saw. We didn't actually meet him,
right?
But we were in the same parade, marching with him as he came to march.
I'm saying, but did you actually lay eyes on him physically?
Yes, definitely.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
That was an historical moment.
I bet.
We enjoyed that.
What was the parade for? Was there a certain kind of campaign, or was he?
How many years ago that was?
About 60.
That's my boy.
It was early 60s, about 60. We in the early 20s,
exactly
22s.
who he was campaigning for at the time of his reasoning for being in Detroit, And we just heard
that's
about
the Motor City. I ain't know if he was, campaigning for cars, or, car workers, and so, all right. So, what do you have any like Martin Luther King Jr. memories? Favorite things, that you experienced growing up, things that motivated you, invigorated you, or any Martin Luther King Jr. memories?
Reading about him, because I was not there, like when they did the sit-ins at the lunch counters and all, because we were forbidden to sit down and eat. All his historical moments.
Right.
We thought that was just so exciting, and we were so thankful that he did all that, because he the one paved the way for us to do a lot of things that we are doing now. If it had not been for him, a lot of things we would not have been able to do. Even though we were a part of the city, we had the same problems as others did. Like you couldn't go downtown and eat at the lunch counters. You couldn't go in different places. And just think, you remember how many years I rode the Greyhound bus?
Right.
So
Auntie Sister just started flying. Auntie Sister would ride the Greyhound bus from Detroit to Tampa, and I never understood it. Because I've been flying by myself since I was 5, so the airplane to me is the way to go. And Auntie Sister was like, Auntie Sister coming, when she get here? Oh, about 4 days. What?
But the point was, if it had not been for him, we would still be going out the bus station and going around to the back and have the white fountains and them Negro fountains and ours would be so filthy you just do without water if you didn't bring your own back in those days. But all those things are memories that we were so glad that he paved the way for us to be able to go in the same restaurant, didn't have to go around behind the bus station in some little place trying to get food while we riding. It took us at least 2 days from Detroit to Tampa.
I thought it seemed like 4 days. Maybe I was just anxious to see you. When the parade happened in Detroit, like how did word get out? Because there wasn't obviously no Facebook, no.
Probably TV.
TV?
Yeah.
Y'all had TV back then?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, well, I didn't know the TV was out, but I didn't know y'all had one. Because we had a black and white TV when I was coming up.
Of course, because we didn't have one at all when we were.
So I was, and they had TVs back then too.
But the news announced it, the TV and that sort of thing. The churches, the churches announced it, so we knew about it.
I was wondering if it was like street work, like flyers, pamphlets, or how word got out.
Yeah, mostly through the churches at that time.
That was social media back then.
Absolutely.
So the social network. So, I know you and I talked earlier on the way to the show about how a lot of people talk about Martin Luther King Jr. and as if a few snapshot moments of Dr. King are sum up his entire political stance, and they will harp on 30 or 40, maybe 60 seconds of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, Dr. King's Drum Major for Justice speech, or Dr. King's I've Been to the Mountaintop speech, and act as though those few words completely characterize Dr. King's belief system and his approach to the not only the need for political change, but how to bring that political change about. And I counter those ideas and those people who espouse such ideas with the very real assertion that they only know those snippets of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And they don't know enough. They have not investigated Dr. King enough to understand his political stance. They just take the cliche stuff, the classic, I have a dream that one day we'll all live together in brotherhood, white and black and all this kind of, this. And so I bought a couple books. One of them is The Trumpet of Conscience. It's really good book. It, Dr. King. It's a short book too. It's not very long at all. Good read, but it opens up, opens Dr. King up for us a little bit. For people who really want to know what Dr. King was about, because most of the stuff people hear or know about Dr. King, they heard or saw on TV. They didn't get it from a book. They didn't read anything that makes it. Most of them don't even know the entire speeches that they quote. They just know these little snapshots that the people who control mainstream media want to inundate us with to keep us, peaceful and docile and thinking about dreams and mountaintops. But Dr. King, in this other book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? Dr. King, has some real interesting ideas about politics and the status of the world when he was, even at the height of his non-violent campaign. I just want to read a couple of little things, that Dr. King wrote, but may not have said in popular speeches. It said, overwhelmingly, America is still struggling with irresolution and contradictions. It has been sincere and even ardent in welcoming some change, but too quickly apathy and disinterest rise to the surface when the next logical steps are to be taken. Laws are passed in a crisis mood after Birmingham or Selma, but no substantial fervor survives the formal signing of legislation. The recording of the law in itself is treated as the reality of the reform. And so, for me, that particular passage highlights that Dr. King recognizes that when something like what happened in Birmingham and Selma happened, like what happened with George Floyd in, 2020? When they killed George Floyd, was that 2020?
1980.
Okay, all right. And, they'll pass laws, but, it's just something on paper, and it doesn't really bring about, certainly doesn't bring about any real change, and barely brings about any kind of reform. We know just the other day, I think it was, January 6th or something like that, police killed this young brother, LAPD killed this young brother named Keenan Anderson. And, with their hand or something on his neck while they tasered him until he ended up having heart attacks and dying. So, even though there's these laws and, these big money awards, the stuff still persists. And even, 60 years ago, Dr. King had that kind of analysis and brought that kind of analysis to us. He also says, talks about how money, economics, plays a role in political power. And Chairman O'Malley used to tell of the African People's Socialist Party and the leader of the Rural Movement and the International Revolution has made it clear that the politics is economic. And Dr. King he didn't just talk about, mountaintops and dreams and, these lofty, airy type words. He had a real practical, materialist understanding of the situation. He says, he talks about how the assistant director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, a guy named Hyman Bookbinder, in a frank statement on December 29, 1966, declared that the long-range costs of adequately implementing programs to fight poverty, ignorance, and slums will reach $1 trillion. He's talking about $1 trillion in 1966. I never even heard of $1 trillion until probably high school age. Like a trillion. You heard million. Sometimes you heard billion. We weren't talking about trillions in our community, right? So we weren't even talking about millions, just unless a football player or a singer got it. But this guy, in 1966, Dr. King says this guy, Bookbinder, declared that the long-range cost of adequately implementing programs to fight poverty, ignorance, and slums will reach $1 trillion. And he was not all that dismayed by this prospect, but this is Dr. King's, talking about this guy. These are his words. He was not all that dismayed by this prospect, but instead pointed out that the growth of the gross national product during the same period makes the expenditure comfortably possible. They could do it comfortably. The United States government could do it comfortably, makes it comfortably possible. It is, he said, as simple as this. The poor can stop being poor if the rich are willing to become even richer at a slower rate. Furthermore, he predicted that unless a substantial sacrifice is made by the American people, the nation can expect further deterioration of the cities, increased antagonisms between races, and continued disorders in the streets. He asserted that people are not informed enough to give adequate support to anti-poverty programs, and he leveled a share of the blame at the government because it must do more to get people to understand the size of the problem. And so this is the Dr. King that we don't celebrate, that we don't talk about. I'm in a lot of town hall meetings and a lot of community forums and what have you, and people always want to talk about like how the great Dr. Martin Luther King and what the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. And they always want to talk about the nonviolence and hand holding and we might not get to the promised land. Hell, I want to see the promised land in my lifetime. I'm not trying to not see the promised land. And Dr. King gave us some ideas, laid some foundation about how to get to the promised land. Right now, even though he said on April 3rd, 1968, he may not get there with us. He left us some stuff we can work with in order to get there ourselves. What do you think about that, Auntie? I mean,
I'm thinking he was laying a good foundation for us to follow.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's this. The popular conversation is all about his speeches, about nice and nonviolence and all that. Right. But there's so much more substance, like real stuff that we could latch on to resolve the issues that we have that we don't talk about when we talk about Dr. King. Right. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Do you see that?
Yes.
I'd like to ask the question, Auntie, what was the promised land for you back then?
What was the promised land for me back then? What was I expecting to achieve? That's it. Okay. Well, I'm not really very sure what it was, but I know the goal that some of us, me included, had in mind, that we wanted life in general to be different. We wanted to be able to do the same things like he's talking about with how much it would cost, $1 trillion for the ignorance to replace all that. I'm thinking that we all could have been on that same level. We should have been thinking about moving ahead, not standing still, not, as you say, just, thinking of the dream only, but thinking of progress and moving forward and accomplishing some of the things that he had in mind for us, rather than just, you said, like marching and saying about I have a dream in the mountaintop. We should have been using reality to accomplish a lot of the goals that he had in mind that people don't talk about.
60 years later, does it seem like we've made 60 years worth of progress?
I don't think we've made 60 years of progress because I think we're still fighting the same things. I'm thinking we haven't made too much. We've advanced, don't get me wrong. We've advanced, we've come a very long ways, but we still have a very long ways to go.
You live in Detroit.
Yes.
Not too far from Flint. Flint still got a water problem.
Yes.
You talked a little bit ago about when you used to live on the Greyhound, how the black people had to go to the dirty, nasty water fountain. 60 years later, Flint still, got a dirty, nasty water. So it's so much of the stuff is still the same.
We haven't made too much progress. We made a lot, but not as much as we should have.
Right. Where do you see most of the progress? We're gonna come back. I think I hear something. You were telling me we got to go to a break, so we're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna talk about where you see most of the progress and what we got to do to get some more. Yeah, we're gonna deal with that just a little bit. Hey y'all, this is the Auntie Sister Show right here on In Touch News Radio, and with your host Life Malcolm. We'll be right back. I forgot to send my mama the link. She can watch it later.
Are tuned into In Touch Radio, reality radio, where everyone is a star.
St. Petersburg, Tampa, Clearwater, and all surrounding areas. Here come Miami's own Chico de Leon Grown Folks Night Out.
Take that mess from off the wall.
Saturday, January 28th, inside the National Guard Armory. Strictly for the grown, put on your best dress to impress, plus performing live.
Only you can make me.
Yes, it's Surface Live and in concert. Chico de Leo Grown Folks Night Out comes to St. Petersburg Saturday night, January 28th, inside the National Guard Armory, 3601 38th Avenue South, along with Surface. Get your tickets now. Tickets $15 in advance. For more info, call 786-486-4366 or 727-768-4543 or go to grownfolksmiami.com and I'll see you there.
When you're close to me, I get all warm sin.
Call Ricky. Ask Ricky. You need medical or a lawyer? I got the man to do the legwork for ya. We tried the other ones before, so believe we hunted down 813-248-6300. Everything gon' be okay, call Ricky, he coming. He taking kids state of Florida, grab a pen or sundown. 184-361-RICK. That's 184-367-425. Never word from the point forward, just recline. Just ask Ricky, plus your boy stay by. Just in case you missed it, I'ma tell you one more time. 184-361-RICK. Call Ricky, ask Ricky. It's a legal medical referral service. The doctors and lawyers in our network are trained in handling auto injury claims and getting you the best medical treatment and recovery. Dial 1-844-361-RICK. That's 1-844-361-7425. Ricky. Ask Ricky.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call Herman White at 961-6661. That's 961-6661.
Yo. Welcome back to the Life Malcolm Show right here on In Touch News Radio, where everybody is a star and the biggest star is you. But right now, the star of the show is my auntie sister, my favorite auntie, sitting in here lending years of perspective and experience to the show, and hopefully you are just as blessed as I am being able to listen to what I just characterized earlier as my living, breathing book of Proverbs. We're talking about Martin Luther King Jr. and how a lot of people, especially white people and Negroes who want so much to be like white people, talk more about Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches that talked about what Martin Luther King Jr. hoped for, dreamt for, wished for, but never talk about Martin Luther King Jr. Telling it like it is, talking about what it was and what it is now, as we just said before the break. But we have this book right here. Where do we go from here? Chaos Our Community. He's not talking about what he wants to see, the dream he has, the mountaintop, the promised land, but he talks about what it is, and he names names and calls groups. White people and black people who want to Be like white people. What have you thinking Martin Luther King Jr. couldn't see, distinctions between white and black and just wanted to hold hands. But he said in his book, of employed Negroes, 75% hold menial jobs. Depressed living standards for Negroes are not simply the consequence of neglect, nor can they be explained by the myth of the Negro's innate incapacities or by the more sophisticated rationalization of his acquired infirmities, family disorganization, poor education, etc. They are a structural part of the economic system in the United States. Certain industries and enterprises are based upon a supply of low-paid, underskilled, and immobile non-white labor. Hand assembly factories, hospitals, service industries, housework, agricultural operations using itinerant labor will suffer economic trauma, if not disaster, with a rise in wage scales. He's talking about, he named a name, the United States government. And he's talking about, he sees the clear demarcation between white people and non-white people. He says that Negroes have proceeded from a premise that equality means what it says, and they have taken white Americans at their word when they talked of it as an objective. But most whites in America in 1967, including many persons of goodwill, proceed from a premise that equality is a loose expression for improvement. White America is not even psychologically organized to close the gap. Essentially, it seeks only to make it less painful and less obvious, but in most respects to retain it. Most of the abrasions between Negroes and white liberals arise from this fact. Read two more things and then Auntie, we're going to talk about it. He said that, this is Dr. King again speaking, whites, it must frankly be said, are not putting in a similar mass effort to re-educate themselves out of their racial ignorance. It is an aspect of their sense of superiority that the white people of America believe they have so little to learn. The reality of substantial investment to assist Negroes into the 20th century, adjusting to Negro neighbors and genuine school integration is still a nightmare for all too many white Americans. White America would have liked to believe that in the past 10 years a mechanism had somehow been created that needed only orderly and smooth tending for the painless accomplishment of change, yet this is precisely what has not been achieved. And yeah, I think that was the last one I wanted to read. This one here. This mood illustrates another fact that has been misinterpreted. A final victory is an accumulation of many short-term encounters. To lightly dismiss a success because it does not usher in a complete order of justice is to fail to comprehend the process of achieving full victory. It underestimates the value of confrontation and dissolves the confidence born of a partial victory by which new efforts are powered. So, based on all that stuff, right? What do you think, what areas do you see progress? Like Dr. King talked about the little victories that we must celebrate, must appreciate, because it's fuel for achieving more. But so you said there's been some progress, but so what things, where do you, in what areas do you see the progress for us?
I think with the employment, okay. Back in the day, the minimum wages were so. I was amazed when I was a housewife most of my life. I started working.
That's why you look so good.
I started working like when my baby son of 8 children went to middle school. And
hold on, you jumped over. How many children?
I said 8.
8 children. You had 8 children. My.
But when my baby's child started middle school, and I started working at the school with some of my friends, and when I heard them say that they had been working for years and they started out like with 75 cents an hour, I was appalled. I said, did people really make 75 cents an hour? Yeah. So, and then, as the time went on, she was saying, how it rose little at a time. But my thing was, I'm thinking that, I think we finally got some progress in making a decent salary and, where economics was concerned and certain provisions that were made for us, So I'm thinking that has a lot to do with it. But I also thought about when you were reading that, and I'm saying not too much progress didn't seem to me I mean, I live in Michigan, as I said,
Right.
and my child was enrolling at Michigan State University, and
Right.
you talking about black and white,
Right.
and I mean, you would have thought all that had no significance in '92, and when my child enrolled at Michigan State University, and we were taking our, moving them in, what it takes to move in. So now they have this big banner across the hallway saying "Niggers go home,"
Wow.
and this is in 1992,
Wow.
and you would have thought a lot of progress would have been made, since Martin Luther King.
Right.
And then when one of my sons, my first son, Richard, when he joined the Marines, this was in the 70s, and all of the prejudice and the racism, and it was horrible. And so I have two sons served in the Marines, and even though we thought in this day and time, after Martin Luther King and his speeches and the progress we made, you would think there would be no more racism around. But there's still a lot of racism.
And why do you
and
think
it's
that is?
hid.
Why do you think that is?
I'm not sure what I think about it, but as I tell my children, until the Lord Jesus himself come back, there's still going to be racism. There's still going to be people hating, and because you cannot legislate love to no one.
Right.
That's my idea. They can pass all the laws of segregation, integration, and whatever they want to pass, but you can't legislate anybody to love anybody.
So, does it take love to end the inequalities in education, housing, economics, employment? Does it take love or power?
I think it might take both. But I mean, if you're loving a person, you're loving the way of life, you will think about it. If you love somebody, you want them to be treated as well as you're treated.
Right.
You want them to be treated equally. If you love the black person or white person, you don't want to bring any harm to them.
Right.
You need power. But I think even that comes from the Lord. The Bible says even power comes from God.
But you can't legislate love.
You can't.
You can't legislate power. You can take power and then have power and control over our own lives, so that now we can love ourselves like we want to be loved. But as long as we're waiting for the people in power to love us and trying to pass a law, get a president, to pass a law, or a mayor to pass a law to legislate, something that looks like love, we're going to come up short.
And that's why I'm thinking, in this day and time, it will never happen. As I tell my children all the time, we're going to have all these discrepancies until the Lord himself come back.
Well,
so I tell them, don't be getting excited and upset every time somebody passes a law that you don't agree with.
I'm going to cut you off now, because we done talked Martin Luther King politics enough now. So tell me, what are you going to do for your last few days in town? What you got planned for the last few days in town?
Well, for one thing, we're going to Life's house for dinner.
Oh.
Ronald house for dinner.
Oh,
Excuse me.
I
Your
was
brother.
I didn't know I was cooking.
Your brother. I'm sorry.
No,
We're going for dinner, and we've just been hanging out, at the malls. And as I said, Fred Hearn, he took us around, and we had such a great tour.
Yeah.
And I know the thing when you were talking about the Perry Harvey Park, and we were thinking, why do they have all those different color statues instead of people colors?
Yeah.
That was a mystery to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Fred probably. Did you ask Fred?
He didn't. He couldn't explain it to us.
Okay. Well, because the people in power wanted it that way.
Art.
Yeah. Art, not imitating art.
Okay, that's what it was.
Well, Auntie, listen, it's been a pleasure and extreme delight to have you on the show. Your smiling face in homes of hundreds, maybe even thousands one day. And thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had a good time sharing with our audience and just laughing and talking with your favorite. Now, I am still the favorite nephew, right?
Favorite nephew.
All right. So definitely appreciate you, and look forward to dinner at my brother's house. You didn't invite me, but I'm coming. All right, y'all. Listen, I hope y'all had a good time hanging out with Auntie Sister, and I hope you learned a little bit about Martin Luther King Jr. Like we said before on this show, Mao Zedong said, "No investigation, no right to speak." And if you don't even know that Martin Luther King Jr.'s name wasn't Martin Luther King when he was born, then you shouldn't be talking to me about Martin Luther King Jr. And if you don't know what I mean, Google it. It's, you can find it on Wikipedia. But yeah, learn about the man before you talk about the man, and then maybe even live like the man. And we might see some of the stuff Auntie Sister says won't come until Jesus comes back before he gets here. All right, y'all. My name is Life Malcolm, and it's been a great show, and we'll see you in the future.